watch this again later, we're going to have it up on the Fantano channel. We'll get it uploaded there tonight, so you can see it over there. And yeah, we'll get it underway now, get that formal intro out of the way. Hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. Hope you're doing well. Today we are having a conversation with someone in the YouTube music sphere who you might recognize, who you might be subscribed to. In fact, if you're not, I recommend that you do. It's Mr. Shawn Cee. How are you doing, man?
Good. I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. Good. I'm glad you came through. Well, I thought that you would, but I'm still happy that you're here.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I never say no.
Never. I mean, any time that we've wanted to link up, you've always been up for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, as of right now, like, you know, I've been looking back at your YouTube catalog in preparation for this conversation. Right now you're coming up on like what, your 6th year as, you know, like a content creator on YouTube. Is that the case?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, it should only be like maybe by the end of this year, the middle of next, that you hit maybe 1 million subscribers.
Oh yeah, that's coming up soon. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, first question off the bat, like after all the videos you've pumped out and all the progress that you've made over this course of time, like, I don't know, I mean, what are kind of your initial thoughts looking back on, you know, what you've been able to accomplish and build so far in terms of like an audience and a brand and even a voice, because obviously over the years you've grown a lot more confident in the things that you say, the takes that you have, the sort of like inside jokes that you incorporate into everything that you do too.
Sure. I'll be honest, I didn't think that when I started this, it would ever amount to, you know, what it is right now. I actually preferred, and anybody who knows me knows that I generally hate the spotlight. I don't like having like that many eyes or that much attention on me. So the more the channel has grown over the years, I've just tried to grow to a point where I have a bit of a separation, and I can like sit back and acknowledge, all right, this is happening at a much more astonishing rate than I thought it would. While at the same time trying to appreciate the people who are still following and still supporting the channel, because me creating it, I was going to be content, you know, maybe this gets to 10,000, 20,000 subscribers. We have a little community. We just talk about the music that comes out, and that's pretty much it. But it's definitely exploded way more than I thought it would.
And, you know, like, what do you feel like is maybe kind of at the root of that unease that you're talking about in terms of like the attention that you get for what you do and, you know, going forward, continuing to do it like as a career, does, you know, that make it more or less of a sure thing for you?
It can be a little bit, it can give me a lot of like anxiety and preparing for like what's to come in the next steps, you know. There have been a lot of like offers and ideas of, you know, from other companies and businesses and whatnot. And generally my first instinct is to say no to these things because I want to keep the point of this channel. I don't want it to be anything bigger than what I initially created it for, which was to just talk about music. So when those bigger opportunities or those bigger audiences, you know, come around, I just revert like to that little person inside that's just like, no, I kind of want no one to really know about this, even though a lot of people know now.
That's I mean, it's funny that you say that. I mean, you know, it is, as of right now, like how do you see your audience currently? Like, you know, is there any effort made on your part to kind of like keep them, I don't know, inclusive or sort of on the same page with you in terms of like energy and vibe and understanding of what you do? Because I mean, so many people are following what you do now. It's like, you know, you're going to have outliers who are just kind of coming in casually and have their own thoughts and perspectives and may not, you know, obviously understand like your history and everything that you've said and done up until this point.
Yeah, I think I'm comfortable with it. It seems that for me anyway, there is an audience that I've seemed to develop that doesn't mind the way I communicate or the way I might say things. And so I'm comfortable speaking, knowing that I'm mainly just talking to them. And so I guess when those, you know, those entities outside of that may come around, I'm not really considering them when I'm speaking or making videos. I'm really just making them just for the people that I already know are there. So it's hard to kind of do things with those outside audiences and those other perspectives in mind, knowing that I just feel most comfortable. I mean, and I still have those same few faces or those same Abbies in the comment section that were there 6 years ago. that I'm comfortable speaking to, or the people that I think I'm talking to still. Like, I don't really think I'm talking to anyone beyond that.
Hmm.
It still feels like I'm talking to like the same 10 to 100 subscribers I had, 6 years ago.
Hmm. No, I think that is one of the most, admirable and consistent things about your channel. Like, no matter how large it's grown, you've been able to keep it like really chill and casual. And, I mean, I'll say by contrast, I mean, just with me, I mean, I know that when I make my content, I have a fucking stick up my ass. And, I'm playing professional, like, even though I'm just on fucking YouTube or whatever. But, it's kind of my energy, it's my approach, it's my vibe. But, you've been able, again, to kind of keep it like really loose and really chill over the years. And I think a lot of people are relating to that. But like, on top of that, before I dig into this next question, like, do you do a lot of like pre-listening and stuff before you do many of your reactions? Many of which seem like on the fly,
To the record that I'm
to the
posting that
record.
day?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. No, I didn't think so, but, I'll say like off the fly, most recently, like, just as an example, your Call Me If You Get Lost review, like, I mean, some of the stuff that you'll just react to and say in terms of like an observation on some of the, narrative parts and the romance parts and the relationship parts, like, are pretty poignant to just sort of be, in the moment.
Yeah, I mean, people also have to understand though, I'm reaching a lot of the time. Like, I have these very random theories that are going and roaming throughout my head while I'm listening anyway. And sometimes it just can be like, oh, I'm just pulling something out of my ass. Like, it's not really something that's like, oh yeah, he's like that articulate, or he's very, very observant, even though sometimes it can appear that way. It's really just like that part of me that's reaching and over analyzing every little bit and part of the music. I could be wrong a lot of the time. But I do think, if you talk for a long enough time, you can kind of navigate your way into what you're trying to say. And, I think that it's a reasonable enough approach for me. I usually feel like when I'm listening to something for the first time, I can generally explain what makes it good for me. So my opinions on it don't change like so drastically, what many would consider to do an appropriate review, maybe 4 or 5 days to a week later after the record comes out. For me, I feel like my opinions don't vary that, there's not a big disparity between that for me. So I feel like I can talk about it on the first listen as somebody would, a week later.
That makes me want to ask you, depending on the artist, the album, the vibe of the record, the kind of music that it's delivering, do you feel yourself consciously when you're making a video having to put yourself maybe in a different like mode or perspective? Because, you talk about like analyzing the record, obviously, like, you want to make a reaction video, you want it to be entertaining, you want people to, have a good time watching it, but simultaneously you don't want to go the entire video without having said anything thoughtful. You want to give people your perspective that makes them think about the record. Are there points where you find yourself feeling like maybe I'm overthinking this, or other people may be telling you you're overanalyzing it? I mean, that's something I often hear. Like
100%.
In those moments, is that something that you is that something that you fear and you have to pull back on, or are you just like, well, I feel like overanalyzing it, so fuck it, I'm just going to say what I feel like saying?
No, I don't do it consciously. I don't do it on purpose. It just happens. Like, that's kind of a part of my personality. Anything that's said, I'll generally be like, well, what does this mean? Or, it has to be more than what it actually is, even if it's not. So I don't think the audience kind of realizes how hard it is to just turn that off. Like, I can't just turn my interest in an idea or a sentence or a word or an inflection or whatever this artist might have done that's piqued my interest. I can't just turn that off.
Sure.
So I think not compromising that little part of me, even if it may be annoying to my viewers to some extent, has still made them like, okay, that might be a bit of a unique thing to him, that maybe he's not willing to compromise that or change it. Even though I do try to sometimes, because some records, it's just like, all right, it doesn't require all that. You don't need to think that hard about it. It's not anything deeper than the surface or what this artist is trying to convey right here. So I'll try to sometimes, but most of the time I'm just like, nah, just reach.
Talking about their reaction to that, I mean, I could tell you all day about, what my relationship with my audience is. I mean, what would you generally say yours is? Is it positive? Is it more contentious? I could say mine's pretty contentious a lot of the time. You know, I mean, often there's the narrative about, you know, the stereotypical fantano viewer that just kind of repeats everything that I say. And, you know, those people probably do exist, and maybe they're not making much of a fuss in the comments because obviously they're getting their directives from me and shutting the fuck up and just leaving. But, you know, a lot of the people down there are just like, fuck you, Anthony, this is your worst take ever, blah, 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 blah. Like, you
That's
know,
crazy.
in your experience, has a lot of your content been as polarizing?
It can be depending on what the subject is. I can prepare myself for the worst, knowing that all right, this artist that I'm about to say something about, I'm not probably gonna. It's probably not a good idea to look in the comments for this video, so I'm gonna just skip it. Or just knowing that the subject might be a little controversial. I try not to get in my own head about it because at the end of the day, everyone's gonna have their own perspective. When it comes to me, when I'm wrong about, well, not even when I'm wrong, but just like if my audience disagrees with me to like that strong of an extent, it usually doesn't go into like something where I feel like I have to take it personally or, you know, they're really shitting on me. Like I need to take a couple days to really digest what the fuck I just read. Like, nah, it's never usually like that. It's just like, oh, you're a piece of shit, you know, I hope you die or something like that. Like I expect those generally. And then that guy, I look at the person who commented and he's got like 87 comments on the channel. So I'm not really taking what he says to heart. Like you don't really mean it. I'm sure if I did die, you would be maybe a little bit sad.
Maybe a little, we hope.
Maybe a little bit.
Yeah. Sorry, what you just said. I lost my train of thought because that was so fucking funny. You know, I guess like with what you just referenced, in your own opinion, like what is one of those biggest moments? And I'm vaguely familiar with at least one or two, and I'm sure there are people in chat who will say, but maybe like, you know, what's that one moment in your head that sticks out where you did have to do like a 180, not because of anything the audience said, but maybe you just like legitimately changed your mind on an album or a take that you had?
Oh man, I don't know if I changed. I mean, you said you have one or two in mind. I don't know what you could be referring to, but I don't
a lot of
remember.
people talk about the Playboi Carti thing because I know at one point, like, you know, you had not, you weren't the biggest fan of like, you know, a whole lot of Red and
Yeah,
like Carti generally, and you know, with that being said, I didn't start off the biggest Carti fan either.
yeah, I would say my take on, yeah, like so May came out, or May, not May came out, May 2018. I think that's when he dropped Die Lit. And I remember posting the review to that thinking that like nobody was really going to see it. Again, that was just me in my headspace of thinking that it's only going to go to these few select people. And I didn't realize his fan base at the time. And I was just shocked to see that he had like this much support. Not to say that, you know, I would have changed my opinions had I known he had that type of following, but I probably would have been a bit more detailed in what it is that made the record bad for me at the time. Knowing that I was just talking to my audience, I was just like, y'all know why I don't like this. You know, generally what makes it bad for me without having to do too much. Me coming back to it, my perspective on it is pretty much the same, but my description of it is a little bit different because I'd recognize that it does have value and it does, you know, add a lot to his discography. It adds a lot to him as an artist. And with that in mind, knowing that his strengths, you know, reside more in just, you know, his lyrical capability or whatnot, the records following that where he was features, and he did a great feature run in 2019, in my opinion. And in 2020, I think it was 2020, a whole lot of Red came out. That was the record where I felt everyone else had misplaced their praises for. Like everyone who was praising Die Lit, I was like, okay, that same level of praise should be here for a whole lot of Red, because with whole lot of Red, I get this one. This one makes sense. He's putting in effort here. It just sounds so instinctive. Everything that he's doing, it feels like it's like he doesn't have to think about it. Like, and I feel I can relate to and kind of feel that kind of energy just oozing throughout a whole lot of Red in its entirety. So I ended up loving that one way more. I wouldn't say that I had like a different perspective or a change on my thoughts for Die Lit, but I definitely respected him way more as an artist as I like followed his evolution a little bit more closely.
You know, given what you said about like Carti fans reacting to, you know, your takes and what you've said about his music, you know, over the course of time that you've reviewed him, you know, what in your experience would you say is the most like ferocious fan base that you've kind of come face to face with in terms of like a review that you did or reactions that they've had?
I I find myself like maybe going to vent on Twitter every now and again about which fan base is the worst, but I do think that most of them have like it's really whatever is in front of you at the moment. I'm sure if you gave like Nicki Minaj a horrible review, the Barbs are gonna tear your ass up. You know, Kanye, if you give him a negative review, they're gonna be up your ass. You know, so I think in the moment that this is the worst, and then I do another one, and it's like, no, this is the worst. So everyone is just bad, like equally to an extent, whatever stand base. But I think the worst one is probably Eminem. It's probably Eminem. I remember doing the Music to Be Murdered By review, and I think out of everyone on YouTube, I was probably the harshest on that record. And I still don't take anything back. Everything I said in there, I just feel the exact same way, even more so now that he released the deluxe to it. But I remember, I think maybe a month had passed or maybe a few weeks, and I looked at the like to dislike ratio. It was like 10,000 likes, and it was like 18,000 thumbs down. And I'm looking in the comment section, I'm like, oh, these people are ripping my ass apart. This is crazy. Like, they are on me. I'm going through, and it's like they're nitpicking every little thing. And I took myself to task to make sure, like, you can't take me out of context.
They analyze every Eminem lyric. They're gonna look at everything you say.
Of course, I understand. But I'm like, I took myself through the effort to make sure you couldn't take anything I said out of context. So even if you want to be mad right now, it's just because you want to be mad. I didn't say anything wrong. I didn't say anything out of the way about him. I love Eminem. If people knew my relationship with Eminem, they would know that this tears me apart to have to say this. I don't want to talk bad about anybody, honestly. It's not fun, but it's almost like a necessary evil if you run a channel that talks about music.
Yeah, you know, I think, like, generally speaking, in my own opinion, obviously, like, you know, negative reviews are going to get negative reactions. And, you know, the audience generally is not going to like a negative review just as a concept. But, you know, that being said, like, I feel like if you're never negative, if everything is great to you, like, people aren't going to take you seriously, you know, because it's like, oh, well, that person likes everything, or he's just, you know, uncritical because, you know, he thinks everything's good. And if you think everything's good, I mean, that's not reality. Not everything is good. But, you know, whatever. You know, I'll agree with you on the Eminem thing. In my experience, the fan bases, I'm not going to say the worst, you know, but like the ones that are the most contentious are the ones that never seem to let things go, and are not the ones, because every like you said, every fan base does this. You do a review, it's negative, it's not the best take, or it's not the most praise, you know, it's not bringing the most praise. And then, you know, the fans come in and they don't like it, and, you know, there's discourse, and then it's like over. Like, for me, the worst experience in terms of, you know, thank you very much, Abe James. You know, the fan bases that stick out to me the most are the ones that are talking about you when you're not saying anything about their favorite artist.
True, yeah, that happens a lot.
Like when in the middle of December, the Eminem Reddit is still posting about me, and I'm just like, why? I have not said anything about Eminem since his last. I haven't said anything about Eminem for months. Why are you posting about me?
They don't let it go. They keep it for a while. That's why, like I said, I do. I don't agree with you like on a lot of your musical opinions. I do still think they're generally well thought out, and I have a level of respect for you that goes beyond a lot of people, because I know you've been going through it for like, at least until you did like maybe that Redux review. I know that like they were on your ass for a whole decade about My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy.
Oh, they're like, still on my ass. They're still.
Yeah, but really that's because you doubled down. Like, you did double down, but before, like, I could imagine what, like, I don't know what that decade looked like for you. Like, after you gave it.
Here's the thing for me. I mean, it's like, I feel like with me, perspective on music is always the fucking long game. At least for me personally, not liking one single fucking record, even if a lot of people think it's the best record from a single artist, isn't a big fucking deal to me, because there's so many other Kanye records I like, and there's so many other Kanye records I've reviewed. I'm not going to sink my whole fucking life and personality and like perspective into this one that I didn't like. I'm not going to let it haunt me for the rest of my fucking life. You know, it's like there's going to be records from everybody that I'm going to enjoy. There's going to be records from everybody that I don't enjoy. And like, you know, it's not a big fucking deal to me that I just sort of didn't really either get one or didn't like one. And you know, it's at least in my opinion, like move the fuck on, you know? But again, you know, like in my experience, Eminem fans are strong. Fiona Apple fans, I know you liked her last record. You know, after my review, which wasn't even the most scathing, like far from the most scathing, I generally liked it. I think she has stronger LPs, but I had blog posts about me. People were telling me I hated women in the comments, even though I very positively reviewed her music in the past. Like I love Idler Wheel. I think that record's fantastic. But you know, like I hate women. Again, blog post after blog post. It was pretty vicious. But again, you know, the people who are thinking about you when you're not thinking about them, those are the fan bases you need to worry about, I think.
Yeah, I could understand.
All right. You know, given what you said about Eminem and you know, also putting into frame your recent, like, I don't know, Jack Harlow video that you did on him that I thought was pretty funny and made some very good points as well. You know, opening up a can of worms, like in your opinion, white rappers generally, like, you know, like
they're trash.
They're trash.
They're garbage. They don't offer anything. They come in and they generally adopt a sound and a style that's already in existence. And I don't know what it is. And I feel like people like they just have like maybe the Stockholm syndrome. It happens with almost every, and of course there are outliers, but when it comes to like the mainstream, you know, point of view, most people are like, oh yeah, here's a new one, and they adopt, you know, kind of the hip hop style, add nothing to it, move from it, and people kind of forget about him. And then the next one comes in and do the same thing. With Jack Harlow, I think people look at him as so much more authentic because he is or comes across as such a nice dude, like just such a genuinely cool person. And he seems really respectful for the most part of, you know, other cultures and their demographic from what I've seen. And I'm like, never have I seen that level of personality able to carry someone so far when the music is just so average, or the music is just so like, there's nothing about it that takes anything farther. That's why I likened him to maybe like a Big Sean, because of how much hate I know he got for his time. And it just, for me, it leaves my mind wondering, like, what other reason would this person be preferred over this one, even though they made the same style? And even at that time, if I had to compare Jack Harlow now to Big Sean then, I would still say Big Sean would be better. I don't know what it is about white artists for the most part that just makes it so, yeah, this is the one. Like this is the one we got to go with. When there are a million other of the exact same of this guy that are black, that do the same thing and that do it better for the most part.
You know, when you say don't contribute to the culture, do you think in your mind, is it a matter of can't or is it a matter of won't? Like,
I think it's a matter of they aren't required to.
Yeah.
I'm sure they have the ability to. There are some incredibly talented white rappers.
Well, with that being said, and you know, I mean, obviously, yeah, there are. I agree with what you're saying. Like, if it's a matter of they can, but they're not required to, or they don't. Like in your mind, what would it take for a white rapper to do that? Like, what is the bar?
What would he have to do? I think he would have to be in a style that's so much different than what we already have. Like, I don't know what that would look like, but I know what not doing it looks like. I know what coming in with the same thing that everyone else has right now. I know what that looks like, what it feels like, and I see when people gravitate toward it. I can see what that looks like. I don't know what it would look like if someone did come out and they're like, oh yeah, you know, I'm about to add this totally new thing. Like when I look at, you know, now if you wanted to switch the conversation from maybe like white rappers to like white producers, that would be a totally different ball game. White producers have way more value than the entertainers seem to. But when I'm just looking at the rapper, I'm like, you're not necessary, and that's okay, because a lot of people, black or white, whatever, aren't necessary when you look at, you know, something like hip hop or rap music. But I guess when you look at it in its entirety, how much you're watering it down, how much you're taking the value of it down by coming in and basically adding nothing new.
Yeah. No, I mean, so, you know, what you're saying is like your preference is like, again, bring something new, bring something different, bring your own style, whether it's like a mainstream record or an underground record, you know, it being standout. You know, just listening to you say this, I'm sort of having this thought off the top of my head, but like maybe this kind of contributes to this, I'll say like pattern, that we're observing because I see it as well. Like, you know, hip hop as a genre and as a culture is obviously so deeply like rooted in black struggle. And the most important, or what we see is like the deepest records in the style, like relate pretty directly to that. But that's not something that white people can obviously do. You know what I mean?
Right.
So in order to sort of like, you know, gain a large audience, maybe many of them, and Jack Harlow kind of flirted with this in a way because you remember he had kind of that verse during the Double XL freshman freestyle, or was it the Cypher where I think it was the freestyle where he kind of reflected on the George Floyd protests and everything.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you're going to have people every once in a while that I guess flirt with that idea, but given that they can't plug into that and maybe make a deep record in that sense, like maybe going pop rapper is the more easy route, because other than that, like the alternative, or at least like what's portrayed in the mainstream as being acceptable for you to do if you're going to do something deeper, is like you go the Eminem route where you're like, I'm eating MCs, I'm saving hip hop, I'm going to change the game. And, you know, beyond that, like what you're doing is like getting in your feels and talking about all of your like personal trauma. And that's not everybody's vibe.
Yeah, I think there are people who've been able to do that successfully without needing to try to emulate like blackness, or try to tackle topics with such a vague understanding of what it is that they're talking about that it just comes off cringy. I think Mac Miller did that pretty well. And he garnered a fan base, I guess, that was just so closely like related to his struggle, either black or white. I think he was one of the only few to be able to do that so successfully, and no one really cared that he was white. You know, he seemed to have a better understanding of the climate, a better understanding of his position. He was far more respectful, I think, to what hip hop generally was. And I think, you know, even looking at the other people in the industry that respected him, he worked with so many people. Like it didn't seem like there was anyone outside of his range that he was willing to attack a song with, you know. And I guess that's what I would appreciate, is someone who appreciates the same things that are already there that everyone else kind of knows about, and is attaching themselves to artistic movements. Maybe like I see Anderson .Paak, for example, or I see maybe Black Milk. You know, I know, even though you know this is off topic, Lil Yachty, for example, he recently had like this love interest in Detroit, you know, and
Yeah, and he did that tape.
He had like a bit of a Detroit rap in general. Like it seemed to have a bit more of a popularity surge after he like kind of inserted himself into it. I think that's better when you make music with it, instead of trying to take it and run with it, acting as if like you came up with it, or this is something that's just like this fresh new idea that's just for you only. You know, there's a respectful way to do it. And I think Mac Miller was probably one of the only few to be able to do that, and no one give him shit for it.
No, I agree in terms of like the artistry and the novelty of what he brought to the table. It's night and day with Jack Harlow. But, you know, like weirdly, the thing also with Jack Harlow is, I mean, I don't know if this is your perspective. This is just what I'm sort of like seeing on music Twitter and just the general music discussion. But with Jack Harlow, there seems to be a lot of like cross-cultural appeal as well. I mean, have you seen the fucking shit women say about this guy? Like what they'll like, I'll cut off my fucking box braids for Jack Harlow. Like it's insane. Like people go absolutely fucking gaga for Jack Harlow, like all over Twitter. And
I think it's Stockholm syndrome.
Do you think you think it's Stockholm syndrome?
Yeah, I think that's just what it is. It seems to happen the exact same way. Obviously, like people are poking fun. Like, okay, if you find like Jack Harlow like attractive or something like that, or you still like his music, I'm not saying like don't like his music. I'm not saying you can't fuck with him or anything like that. But if you're looking at him from like a critical point of view, yeah, there's nothing there.
Yeah.
And from my eyes, I look at it as like, oh, here we go again. When is it going to be his turn?
Hmm.
You know, I look at even Post Malone. I remember how well he was received when he first came out.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying that people still don't love his music and enjoy it now, but it definitely isn't the same type of reception, at least from black people, that they had. That reaction isn't there the way it was.
Hmm.
And I feel like that is inevitable for Jack Harlow unless he does something different.
Hmm. I mean, one other thing that I'll say about Jack, and then we'll move on to another topic that didn't necessarily come up in your video, and which I think is maybe one of the biggest contributors to his success so far. I'll say it like, even though there's not a whole lot of substance there, when it comes to his performance and just like writing style,
Mm-hmm.
for lack of a better term, he's just smooth with it.
Right.
Smoother than your average white boy.
Oh,
And
cool. 100%.
because again, like the general experience that you're having in that realm is like, again, I'm a lyrical miracle spiritual. I'm gonna change the game, the main frame, blah 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 blah. And it's like there's just so much hubris in that, and I feel like generally in terms of especially like mainstream hip hop, a lot of people want to just vibe to something, just like want to relax, just want to enjoy themselves, and
Oh,
Jack,
100%.
Jack just like allows you to do that. He just allows you to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to fall asleep too. I don't know what else I'd do with it, to be honest. Like I listen to it, I'm just like, it is what it is. And you like them, that's great. I'll shut the fuck up. Like if my friends are around me, they want to play some Jack Harlow, play some Jack Harlow. I'm gonna pretend to vibe out. It's not that big of a deal, honestly. But yeah, in the back of the back of my mind, I'm like, I wish they would turn this off, but it's fine.
Remind me again of how old you were when you started your YouTube channel.
Well, the first time when I created it, I think I was either 19 or 20.
Hmm. And like over the course since then, and when you started uploading content till now, I mean, just as a music fan, speaking just as a music fan, like your tastes have evolved and changed so much. And obviously, like in terms of the music that you show people that you're listening to, branched out a lot as well. Like,
Sure.
do you attribute that evolution at all to, just being in the position that you are and having the audience and the channel that you do sort of maybe being a point of exposure and being a place for you to find out about what you're, listening to on a daily basis? Like has being on YouTube and being a critic in a way sort of like refined your taste over the years?
Um, if it hasn't refined it, I would definitely say it's made me a lot more inquisitive.
Mm.
I know for a fact that when I started my YouTube channel a long time ago, I didn't start it with the intent of like looking for or finding out about new artists or new styles of music, new genres or new genres that were new to me at the time. I generally started to give my perspective on like music that I was already aware of, from artists that I already knew about. And the more I went through my channel, the more, somebody would comment and be like, well, what are your thoughts about this person? Or what are your thoughts about this person? I'm like, okay, I don't know. I have to listen to them. And I would listen and be like, oh, this is a new style that I'm like really interested in. Like, that's really dope. And then I would just kind of go down the rabbit hole. You see other styles. I got into a lot of one artist in particular that I was just like floored by was Lyra Pramik's Fountain that came out in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember how I found that, and I find myself feeling like that very, very often. I find myself in a position where there's music that is always just in my ear, or always on my playlist, and I don't remember how I found it. If that happens a lot.
Are there any records or artists or genres that you could attribute to, sort of your channel and your process and the work that you do that maybe you found yourself listening to that in another context maybe you never would have gotten into?
Uh, yeah, there are definitely certain styles of maybe like abstract hip hop that I probably wouldn't, have given much thought to or time of day to, or certain pieces of the underground that I might not have paid as close attention to. I know for a fact I probably would have never got into like JPEGMAFIA, for example, had I not been on YouTube. The same could be said for plenty of like neo soul records, a lot of folk records, even. Like I get a lot of recommendations, and that's one of the reasons also why I started the songs I'm listening to playlist kind of series to give people an update on what I'm currently listening to, but I want to steal every piece of music that they comment. You know, I want to look at everything that they're listening to. And they do have oftentimes really good recommendations.
Hmm.
So yeah, I definitely there's a big piece of music I think would be missing from me if I didn't have this channel.
You know, talking about JPEG Mafia, I think, you know, obviously an artist that we both share a lot of positive
Yeah.
energy toward. Um, Before we go, I think we should have a short gush fest about the guy, honestly. But before we do that, like, what do you say about what is kind of this growing, I guess, like niche kind of pocket of the music underground where I don't know, like it feels more legitimate than it did back in 2011, but like still to this day, when people like JPEG Mafia come up, like you will see responses like, the fuck is this shit? This is just like some bullshit on the internet that nobody listens to. Nobody knows about this shit. Like everybody who listens to this other artist has a fucking life. Like, you know, the only people who listen to JPEG Mafia are white people and people who you never meet in real life because they're just on the internet all day. Like me.
Uh, I can understand. I can understand the take because the music is generally unique relative to everything else that's in the landscape. But I mean, it says more about you than it does the artist that you're listening to. If you're like, what the fuck is this? Like, who's listening to this? Like, you're giving it a chance. And other people have been in your position. They likely gave it a chance. I mean, this is only for people who genuinely are trying to go down that rabbit hole. And I think if the only thing that you have to compare it to are the only other styles of music, and those styles of music are generally like way more mainstream or indicative of people who have a life, so to speak. I don't think that's a slight against the artist. I mean, when I listen to JPEG Mafia, for example, I think, as you said before, you said that there's this new sense of maybe legitimacy to it, but everything that's going on, I don't see. And maybe I might be describing his music like the way he might not have intended for it to be interpreted, but I feel like his music is just so much more like indicative of someone who's frustrated with like everything around them. You know, when I listen to him, I'm like, yeah, I understand. Like, look at the world we live in. Like, why wouldn't someone exist to make music like this? Basically, like everything can't be so vapid and so like superficial. Like, you need people like this. I don't know why you wouldn't want to have more artists like this if you encountered them, but everyone's in a different space. So that's why I oftentimes say that it isn't always the artist's fault that you don't like their music. You know, sometimes you ran into it at a wrong point in your life, or you might need to tackle it, or you might relate to it at, you know, some later stage. That's fine. But I don't generally find myself wanting to give a harsh opinion of someone or something if I know that at that point that I'm listening to it, it's just not for me. Like I feel like I can discern when something isn't for me versus when something is just shit or when it's bad. Like Yeet, for example.
Yeet being someone who's not for you, you'd say?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little shit, but it's also not for me. Like, it's not. I see why people like Yeet. I do, but it isn't for me.
You know, I think he has some bangers. I mean, obviously
Mm-hmm.
that wouldn't come across in the review that I just did, but you know, that's kind of the thing that I feel like maybe doesn't always come across in a full album review. And you know, honestly, it's like when you're talking about artists like that, for example, like even Playboi Carti, you know, most of like their fans are not like listening through Whole Lotta Red all the way fucking through every single time they enjoy that
Mm-hmm.
record. They're just like
Right.
picking out their favorite tracks. They're fucking with their favorite tracks. But if you are coming in and talking about the whole album as an experience, when that's not how the fans are experiencing it, like
True.
obviously there's going to be like a disconnect there. But you know, it's like I think a lot of things, even the stuff that I give kind of, you know, low level reviews to, is fine in small doses, you know, or it's like it's
Yeah.
good in a certain context. And you know, with that being said, and knowing, you know, what you ranked LP, you know, in your top albums of the year list last year, the many album lists that you've done so far on your channel, and you know, all the reactions and reviews that you've done. I don't know if I could answer this question personally, but to you, do you feel like after all of this content, all of these listening sessions, that you have a better idea or a solid idea as to like what you generally look for in an album, in terms of like something that you hoist up and you're like, this is great, this is fantastic, this is just blowing me away?
Um. Usually, if I can determine based off what the artist is putting out, if they have like a focus,
Hmm.
and it's usually determined by like what the artist seems to be trying to achieve and how well they achieve that goal, that determines like what is so spectacular or great. I also think musically it has to be interesting. So from like, from a musical standpoint, if the music isn't great or if it isn't engaging, if it isn't interesting despite the content, it could be boring. It could feel like a chore to listen to at certain points. Um, I wouldn't say that it's something that I've fully figured out. It's definitely a case by case basis of like this record. It happens a lot too. Like a record could be reminiscent of the landscape, and I think it's great out of nowhere. Like it doesn't sound too different or too far off than what's already been released, but for some reason this one just hit home. Maybe it was the mood or the environment that I was in at that moment, the context of which I was playing the record. I felt that way very strongly about Lil Baby and Lil Durk's Voice of the Heroes record that came out last year as well.
Yeah, they had some real chemistry
Wow.
on that one.
Yeah, like it's really great, but why outside of their other records did this one stand out amongst them? And when you look at the musical palette, it's not that much different. The range isn't that crazy,
Right.
but it works.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just works. And I find myself being in that position a lot more recently where things that I used to, shit on or maybe not hold to that high of a regard or standard, I'm like, wow, this is really entertaining. This is really interesting.
Well,
And especially now in COVID too,
hmm.
I don't that same requirement just like it faded away like really fast. I think I was looking for something to kind of be that little entertainment factor a lot more recently.
Well, in terms of like specifically Dirk and Baby, like, yeah, you could say that over the course of time that we first been introduced specifically to like Baby, like he's very much like aesthetically stuck to his guns, but he's
Right.
found a way to stick to what fans are used to, but also like in a very notable way grow
Right.
exponentially in terms of the flows he approaches with and what he puts into his shit in terms of content. And,
Right.
even Dirk vocally, you could say, is like advanced quite a bit over the years, especially since he's having kind of this renaissance moment right now. And I feel like that record, even though I wasn't crazy about the production track after track, like they kind of met each other at a perfect kind of peak time where it's like, yeah, I'm kind of at my best right now. I'm kind of at my
Right.
best right now. Let's like bring it together for a dozen tracks.
Yeah. I think what they did was very special. And I think I think they made their cities proud. I think they definitely showed out. And I don't know, whenever I hear something that I think is that great, I usually go back and I start like randomly dick riding the rest of the music from that artist. Baby, I think I've gone back to so many of his previous tracks that I probably turned my nose up at or was like, this isn't really for me. And I come back and I hear it after hearing his performances, and I'm like, oh no, I see why in 2019 or in 2018 people loved him, or in 2017 when he was putting out music. I see why people liked him then. So uh during those moments, I guess when the artist is at their peak or when they're great, it definitely makes me go back in their catalog and just appreciate what people had been saying about them that whole time. Maybe I missed out. You can be wrong like that.
Yeah, I mean, for a lot of artists, all that needs to happen is like for a new thing to click, for whatever they did like 2 years ago to maybe not be as good, but like appeal to you. I mean, I'll say that, personally was JPEG Mafia for me because like I was aware of his stuff when he did like that Black Ben Carson record, but like
Right.
it wasn't until I heard Veteran that I was like, okay, wait, this is like pretty fucking crazy. I need to get more into this guy's stuff.
Yeah.
Moving on from there, I wanted to, ask you, in terms of like the artists and, records and genres, I mean, maybe I'll not even frame it that way. Like as of right now, and maybe we got into this a little bit early in the interview, but, to sort of like put it really bluntly, like what are your aspirations on, YouTube and just kind of like music reactions and reviews like from here? Do you hope to just continue on this path because it's comfortable, this is kind of your preference, or do you see kind of like, pushing it beyond YouTube at some point or branching out into other things?
I think I definitely would like to keep, excuse me. I think I would definitely like to keep the approach very much so what I started with,
Mm.
and keep it on the same platform for the most part. But I think my approach to it is a little bit different now. I find myself not being, and it's interesting because I used to want to talk basically about like all the pieces of music that I was listening to,
Mm.
make a video for each song, make a video for every album. I just find myself in a point now where I think I know my own strengths and weaknesses. And one of my weaknesses is probably covering music that I'm indifferent toward.
Mm.
It's very hard for me to make a video entertaining or engaging the way I would like to if the record isn't giving me any thoughts or if I'm just very center of the road on it. Uh, I find myself giving the most entertainment when I have a strong opinion about something, even if that opinion is extremely negative or extremely positive. When it's middle of the road content, I usually try to focus more on making a point out of it. So like when the Core Day record came out, I don't want to make an album review about a bird's eye, whatever the album was called. I think Bird's Eye Point of View, something like that. I would rather make a video on why this is boring or why it's mid, why I don't like it like that,
Mm.
or why it's passable, but why it just doesn't fit. Same thing with Jack Harlow, for instance. There are moments where I think covering music in a way that tries to make a point out of what it is appeal more to me than reviewing it, and I found myself in that space a lot more, where
Mm.
I just would rather, what can I say about this that's bigger than the song or bigger than the album that's not giving me any thoughts.
Mm.
So I think that's more my direction. Just trying to be above the lack of interest sometimes that I have in music in general.
Mm.
Because I think the more and more I cover it, you might get to a place where you get burnt out, or you stop having those same interests or those same ideas that you had before. Maybe you want to cover much more music, but you don't feel the motivation to.
Mm. What do you feel in terms of I'll say for my own experience, like having done this for like over 10 years at this point, like I'm at a point where, and not even just me, but just sort of like seeing the YouTube music review and reaction format grow in the way that it has and sort of like branch out into so many different channels. Like I feel like it's become such an established practice that it's kind of like replaced the league of music review websites that were from back in the day. But, we're in like this loosely connected network of commentators just kind of all doing our own thing. And, like, do you feel like at some point there is like, what is going to be the next thing that's like, I'm not going to watch Fantano anymore. I'm not going to watch Shawn Cee anymore. That shit's fucking old. I'm watching this guy, I don't know, like snort coke off of whatever the new album is that just came out like on TikTok. Like I don't fucking know.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely going to be like a new format. Without joking,
Hmm.
I'm only thing I could possibly see is maybe like draw what you see, like, or draw what you feel. So someone starts,
Shit, it's gonna be
an
art.
album
It's
with
gonna be
their
people who
eyes
can
closed.
draw. It's gonna be people that draw who can draw.
Yeah.
I can't draw for shit, so
Really?
I'm fucked.
Oh wow, that sucks.
If people
I
have
used
to
to
if
be
people
able
have
to.
to draw reviews, I'm gonna be fucked.
No, I think I definitely used to be able to do that. That's why I've been telling people for months recently that I wanted to start on Twitch. And one of the things that I thought I was going to be able to do, even though I haven't done it yet, was just be like, all right, close your eyes, either take a pencil or paintbrush, and while you're listening to an album, let your hand do whatever it wants to do, and try to draw what it is that you see while you're listening to it. Because I find myself in that mode a lot when I'm listening to music, and I might close my eyes for a second, or I might just like blank out while I'm listening to it, and I just start seeing all these random colors. And I think it's interesting for me to see like what other people would have, what it is that they would put out, I guess, if they had to put themselves in the same position. I would like to see that as a style of video making, maybe, unironically, but I don't really know what else would be the next big craze, the next big thing. I really don't.
Just trying to imagine the beautiful waves and lines that I would draw.
Yeah.
Closing my eyes, listening to Jack Harlow, just
And then you you open your eyes and you see what you just did.
and I've hand drawn flawlessly the Mona Lisa without even without even trying, after listening to
Yeah.
some Jack Harlow. What do you think generally about another thing that people get crazy about in the comments? What do you think generally about the idea of bias and bias in reviews? Like, I'm sure there have been moments where you've been accused of bias. Like, and I think you and I know, bias is just like a fact of reality. We're all biased in our own way. Like, over the years, like, what do you feel like you've come to understand are your biases when you're coming into whatever kind of record that you're going to be reacting to?
I think you could say maybe like effort. I feel like I can tell if someone's putting in effort. And I do have a bias toward knowing or feeling like something is intentional. Like if something is accidental or someone like makes a record and it's really good, but I don't feel like they meant for it to be good, they just kind of happened by chance. I'm not saying I respect it less, but I kind of respect it less without saying it.
Well, what does that mean for you in terms of like music that's obviously really experimental, like Whole Lotta Red or, LP or something, where it's like clearly, even though there's a final version of it that was like recorded and tweaked and everything, like there's obviously a lot of moments on those LPs that are just like, I'm just going to fucking throw this shit at the wall and see like what happens.
Right. I think those are those moments where I'm like, I find myself at a bit of a conflict because I'm like, yeah, I mean, is it good? Yeah. Like, was it meant to be good? No. And I find myself maybe it's not that big of a deal, but it's a slippery slope. And I found myself, like I said, I recorded a whole first listen to maybe to Yeats music, and I remember looking at the video. I trashed it. I remember scrapping it, but I remember looking at the video and I was like, why does this look like you are so confused? But I think Yeet did recently break me because I didn't know what it was supposed to be, and I find myself if I'm ever confused, that's when I start like, all right, this ain't really for me. I think I stopped trying after a while if I get broken, and yeah, I think he did that for me. Like music like that where I don't know the exact direction of it or it isn't clear to me, yeah, I probably have like maybe a negative bias towards it. But if I take myself out of that mode, I think I can generally come back to it and try to recognize like what makes it good and what makes it bad. But like our first listen, first interaction with it, like it has to be clear to me. If it's not clear, I don't generally like it like that.
No, I can definitely feel that. I mean, just as kind of at least in my own head, a shining example, which I mean, there have been people who have gotten up my ass about this over the years and will probably, continue to. But for example, like looking back on past Travis Scott releases like Owl Pharaoh and also Days Before Rodeo, which like at the time, both of those projects, I was like, this shit is a mess. I don't know what the fuck he's doing. Like I can hear that it's experimental and it's like bringing together so many different genres and influences and well, not genres, but like strains of hip hop. And it's bringing together so many different regions as well. But like, I don't feel like it's coming together effectively. But then when I hear Rodeo for the first time, I'm like, holy fucking shit. This is like, at least in my opinion, this is like the Cadillac of everything I've been listening to so far. Like the production is so much better. The song structures are there. The choruses are hitting. The, artist placements are better. As you sort of like said in your Call Me If You Get Lost review, I think Travis on that record did a really effective job of grabbing certain artists who had a certain sound and vibe and putting them exactly where they needed to be on whatever beats or choruses and just making it work perfectly. Right. But, again, like records where it sort of seems like you're doing a shot in the dark can be kind of annoying, but simultaneously, sometimes those hot messes do kind of keep me like paying attention to what you do because then I'm at least like, okay, well, maybe like they'll just fucking throw a random free throw from half court next time and it'll fucking, be nothing but net. You never know. Right. Like I know, at least for me personally, if things are getting really predictable and you're kind of doing the same thing over and over and over again, I feel like I personally have a bit of a bias against that because then it's sort of like, well, you're not really bringing too much new to the table. I mean, it could be decent. There are a lot of decent artists and bands who do the same fucking thing every time.
But see, that's my thing. When I get to that stage, I'm now no longer on the positive spectrum when it comes to those records. Even if they're really consistent, I find myself like, okay, this is just the value of it goes down, even if it's the same quality as the previous.
Right.
And since I've already heard you at your peak and you release another one that's basically the same thing, I'm gonna have a harsher opinion of it because I'm like, okay, you can do something different. And maybe, like I said, that I feel like it's a negative for me to not be able to fully appreciate when someone is that consistent. But I also feel like it's a negative for like the climate that we're in too, because it's like if everyone keeps doing it, when is the next thing? When is the next change going to occur if no one demands it, if no one is requesting it?
Right. You know, in my experience, it may not necessarily make me super negative on the release, but it'll prevent me from wanting to come back to it. You know,
Right.
I'm just going to
replay value.
Yeah. Like the replay value is going to be lower, and I may not hate it, but I'm going to be a lot less likely to gush over it. You know?
Yeah.
Well, man, look, it's been a good conversation. It's been a good time. You have any questions, questions for me that you want to throw out here or anything that you've been, at the top of your head?
What do you got in store? What reviews are you working on?
I'm next. Well, as I was saying earlier, I think I'm going to dive into, what
the Kanye,
like, what we have of it so far. I've been also kind of listening to that new Cities of Eve record. I don't know if you've listened to that.
Who's that from?
I think he's an East Coast rap. Like he's been doing what he's been doing for a long time. Like he goes back to some of the earliest days of cloud rap in 2010, 2011. But like it's been until like the last several years that his style has evolved in a way where it's almost like parallel started working within kind of the abstract hip hop trends that are popular right now with like Earl and Mike and, so on and so forth. And this new record that he has out is like this fucking 90-minute monster where it's like nothing but these insane loops and lo-fi beats, and every vocal on it sounds like a loudspeaker, like blaring up from another dimension. Like it's just like a real trippy vibe. Again, 90 minutes. It's loaded with tracks that are like a minute 30 seconds. And then there's like a 12-minute song in the middle of it.
Okay. You lost me.
So it's like, it's kind of fucking,
it's
kind of fucking insane. Yeah. Well, that's another thing. You hate biases. You a lot of the time, you don't always hate, you don't really like long songs. You don't like long songs too much. What's the vibe with long songs? What's the problem?
There isn't a vibe with long songs. There isn't a vibe with long songs.
Well, some very jammy long songs are actually all you can do is vibe to them. There's not a whole lot going. All you can do is just vibe to it, just veg out.
There's so few and far between. I just don't know why I would want to like torture myself with the same thing. Well, it depends. If there's like some evolution happening throughout the track, then
right. What if there's a beat switch?
Well, of course, yeah. Like you mentioned the "Call Me If You Get Lost" review. Wasn't it the Sweet song? I believe.
Yeah. And like it goes into the whole reggae thing.
Yeah. That's an amazing song. It's one of my favorite songs ever. That's that long. It's very rare though. You get a track that's 10 minutes plus where you don't want to fall asleep.
What if it's 10 or 12, but it's gradual change? The beat's changing a little bit. Maybe it's getting more reverby. Maybe it's just getting more wet.
I don't know if it's enough. You need to turn it up a little bit more. A lot more needs to be added as the song progresses.
What if strings come in? What if strings come in?
Okay, you got me. Strings coming in, throw a violin in there, throw me off, throw some hi-hats in there. I don't know why you would do that. Yeah, some group vocals, choir maybe. Do something like that.
So it could be like this. It could be like the same melody or the same chorus or something, or chord progression, but like if the instrumentation's getting bigger.
Yeah. I just want it to grow. You have to grow with it. Like I don't want it to be the same.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you don't want it to all just be the same, of course. But in terms of biases, would you say that there's anything else, just as like a general concept, that you feel like is just off the table, or just like, again, like with long songs, when you see that you're just like, no, absolutely not.
Long albums.
Deluxe
albums.
But the thing is, like, yeah, sure, deluxe albums. Like, I get it where it's like, hey, here's the album. Now here's the deluxe
Two
album.
days later, let's drop the deluxe.
It's just another. And when back in the day, I'll say like as somebody who's 30 plus, like deluxe album meant more tricked out packaging and it had 3 extra tracks or some shit. Like now, deluxe album is another album on top of the album. The deluxe is just 2 albums. Like I get that, but like generally speaking, what do you say of like the trend of like, the Migos record is 90 minutes. The Drake record is 90 minutes. The Kanye record is 90 minutes. And, and Donda ranked pretty high on your, year-end list and everything. Like,
yeah, but everyone's not Kanye.
No, that's
everyone can't.
That's true. That's true. But like, obviously there's going to be exceptions, but like for you generally, like outside of the deluxe album realm, like, what is too long for a record?
Usually once you pass, an hour, honestly. I mean, realistically speaking, 45 minutes is that like sweet spot.
Right.
An hour kind of pushing it, but you can justify it if majority of the songs are great or good, somewhat passable. But once you like break past an hour, we're entering like feature film length. And at this point, it's almost like, people go out of their house to watch a big screen to waste this amount of time. Like, you're making me do this with an album. Like, in most of the time, those albums that are that long can never justify their length. You would have been better off cutting it at 7 tracks, dropping a little EP, marketing it as something that you didn't really try for. But like for Drake, for example, I don't know what he's doing. It's been this way since 2016. Hour and a half, hour and 20 minutes. Like, bro, if I want to watch a movie or I want to see something, I'm gonna leave. People have more, and I try to like bring myself back and understand that to some extent, and for some artists, it's more of like okay, let's see how much money we can get. Let's increase or boost streams or whatever. Or let's put enough songs on this because we want to please our label or whatever the case is. And so I realize that some people are doing it more of like as like an employee-employer relationship, where if I ask for overtime or if I ask for extra hours, you give it to me. But generally, for people who ask for those extra hours, it's not a detriment to the customers. Like, the service quality doesn't diminish that severely to where you working extra hours means a negative experience for the person that's buying or paying for whatever product that's in the store. In this regard, you're basically telling me that the extra streams or the extra money that you would get is dependent upon whether or not I listen to it. And you're forcing me to have to put in labor for your benefit, even though the songs are trash, even though the songs are usually not passable. So yeah, that's my biggest point of contention with the whole long album thing, is that it requires too much from the listener and not enough from the person making the music.
Yeah. I mean, in some ways it's like, it's hard to put it in terms that would like prescribe what we should do instead. But I feel like a lot of this is just like a residual from the fact that it hurts to say this as an album reviewer, obviously, but I think in a lot of ways the album format's fucking dead. Yeah. Like, I think like while albums exist, obviously, that's not how most people are experiencing music now. It's like they're just kind of picking their favorite tracks from the records and they're going back to those tracks. And like, if the rest of the record's fucking trash, who cares? It's like Drake puts out a 90-minute album knowing that there are going to be hardcore fans that fuck with like a third of those tracks, a quarter of those tracks, and just listen to those tracks repeatedly over and over. That's how you make money doing that shit. But like simultaneously, last thing I'll say is, but simultaneously, like, how else are you going to release music to fans to get them engaged with it and get them excited about it other than in a fucking batch? You know what I mean? Because like, you can't do a whole rollout for every single goddamn song. People get tired of that. So it's like, you just got to kind of throw it all out there in a shotgun blast and just kind of let the audience decide which one of these tracks is actually hot. Like, which one are you actually going to listen to over and over? I can't decide that for you.
Nope. They don't have to do that. They don't have to do that at all. You can just, I don't know. You can just be reasonable. I don't think it's that big of a stretch to be like, yeah. Even just studying your demographic, let me just be like, all right, how old is my audience generally? If they are 20, 30, 35, maybe, the likelihood of them having an hour and a half to spend listening to my music is probably minimal. right? So let's look at our demographic. Let's study who we're making music for and who we're releasing it to. All right, now that we got that understood, let's pick from the absolute necessary records on this album. You know what that is. I don't believe artists just think
do you though?
Everything is that great. You do. You have to.
No, but here's the thing. It's like nobody's looking like specifically like on the Drake record. Nobody's looking for the great track. Everybody's looking for what track is going to go the most viral. What track is going to be the most successful commercially? And when
isn't that the best track?
No,
to the mainstream.
Are you kidding
me? To the mainstream.
If
we're looking at the mainstream, "Way Too Sexy" is the best song on Certified Lover Boy. That's the best song. I don't think it's the best song, but the streets and the people have decided that this is the one.
Like, obviously, that's going to be the dumbest, silliest, most easy to appeal track on the record. Yes,
of course.
Yes. No, I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that.
So who cares about the best track? Well, I'm way too sexy. Like, what are you talking about? This is my bread and butter right here. I don't need anything else.
You know, look, I'm saying, like, okay, example. Because again, like, you throw tracks out there, you never know what's going to hit. Like, for example, fucking Future, Mask Off. Like, that track didn't drop initially as a single, or like was not pushed initially, but that track ended up being one of his biggest songs ever and the biggest song off that record. But again, that was not like dropped. That was dropped on the same record and was handed to the audience. It was just like, bam. Like, whatever you fucking vibe to off this LP is what you vibe to. And Mask Off was just the track, lo and behold, that everybody just uniformly decided, this is the hottest shit. This is it. This is what we want.
It doesn't matter, though, because Future is Future. Not everyone's Future. It's the same argument. Future can do that.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, like, yeah, Future is Future. That's true. But there are dozens of artists who are currently at his level in the industry that are dropping albums roughly the same way. Like, we're just gonna
on Future's level, basically.
Migos. That's how Migos drops fucking records. Like,
but no one cares about Migos the same way they care about Future.
People don't care about Migos.
I'm not saying they don't care about Migos. I'm saying not at the same level. If Future and Migos drop the same day, Migos sales are dropping.
Like, are you talking about in a general sense? Because, like, I'm sure there are people out there who would say, like, No Label 2 era, Migos, and so on and so. It's like pretty fucking essential.
I mean today.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Like, generally today. But the thing is, like, you know, just as, you know, sure, like, in terms of a run and impact on the industry, you could say that, like, Future has had, you know, a longer career and, like,
legend.
You know,
he's a legend.
Much more legend status than Migos.
I need to hear you say
at this point, I think they're both entitled to be like, hey, like, we're gonna come up with a bunch of tracks that, you know, we just rip together in studio. Some of them might be hot, some of them are probably not going to be. Let's just see what flies.
I don't think that anyone needs to do that, though, especially when you have a sound that can be replicated to a point where someone's making Migos type beat on YouTube or this type beat for any particular artist. You know that you're not that unique of an artist, that all your songs have that much difference in style that it's like, oh, you couldn't take maybe 5 or 6 to even 10 off of your album and make it a better experience. They know that. Drake knows that. Future, I have a bit of a softer spot for Future, but there are plenty of artists that are that mainstream that know that. They know what they're doing and they do it anyway. I'm not saying they don't care, but they could care less is what I'm saying, basically.
Who do you think, in your opinion, is somebody, you know, this is something I want to ask you because obviously you can be frank enough to say this, whereas, like, if I ask a musician this, they'd never say it. But, like, who in your opinion is somebody who, you know, see success and, you know, continues to have a career, but in your opinion, they don't care anymore?
They no longer care?
Or even just an example of an album that you heard recently where you expected it to be better, but you're just like, you don't care. You just don't. You're not putting anything into this. No heart, no passion, no soul.
Damn. I would probably say Future then.
You think Future's latest?
What was his latest? Was his latest High Off Life?
It might have been. I know that I enjoyed
I was thinking of his most recent song.
I know I enjoyed that Wizard record that he dropped a little while back. No, his latest was High Off Life, but then he also had the Lil Uzi Vert record that he did.
Yeah, that was bad.
Yeah, but the thing is,
And I
like,
don't feel like he cared.
most crossovers like that are bad. You know, it's
But that's another example though. Like the star power of those two combined is like it's just it was a recipe for greatness and nothing happened. Like nothing.
sure, sure. No, it's true. Look, like every once in a while, again, you do get like, you know, a Durk and Baby. You do get a Watch the Throne, where it's just like chemistry off the charts and everything. But like
Yeah.
random crossover for, you know, 45 minutes to a half an hour for however many tracks, like you know, unannounced, like completely out of the blue, it doesn't usually go over fire.
Yeah. Maybe Wayne then. I don't want to say Wayne. I really don't, because verse wise, I think he had an incredible 2021. But if we're looking at like his own records, I don't really think he has to care.
Yeah, I think Wayne is a tough call because you can never really count him out, because every once in a while
Ever.
you know he's going to make an amazing verse, and when he comes out with a trash one, it's usually it's at least my opinion that I don't come away from it feeling like you didn't try, you just kind of maybe went into it with like a bad concept for it or something. You know, I feel like you can kind of tell how great a Wayne verse is going to be from the first few lines off of it. And if he like continues with that momentum.
But for Wayne though, I don't think Wayne has to try to make a great verse. Like the way he comes off, it just seems like it's like breathing. It's like so natural, it seems. And I guess there still seems to be like a disparity from like when he's giving a great verse versus when he's giving something that's like ultra forgettable or just not very memorable in a sense. Like his last album wasn't it Funeral, I believe?
Well, you know, I would say like just as a recent example that for me is night and day is like the verse on the Weekend record. I hate that verse.
Yeah.
Not only is that verse completely like does not fit that track, but I just feel like for him generally that was an awful verse.
Yeah.
But then his verse on the Conway record, like that had multiple flow switch ups, had some hilarious fucking bars. It fit the beat, fit the vibe. He even reinforced like some of what Conway was saying as well on the track. Like great verse from Wayne, and it didn't feel like just a standard verse from him either. It felt like a little bit more.
Yeah, but when I refer to people that I don't think have to try anymore, I mean more so his solo work, because if he's working with Griselda, like he's gonna be inspired by what they're doing. He's gonna put out his best because Conway's gonna bring out, you know, his best. He's on a Conway track. Like you have to spit. You don't have a choice. But you know, I say the same thing about like maybe Freddie Gibbs. He gave the Corday album a very, very like awful verse. It was like a really forgettable verse for all that does is really just show me that how you view the artist that you're doing the verse for. Like you don't think that you have to put that much effort in because I mean maybe they're not worth it. I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but maybe that's what it seems like. And so if I look at Wayne's like solo work, it's like, yeah, I mean, you haven't been no one's requiring you to try because you're already a legend.
Yeah.
You're already at the top. You've already done what most artists could never do. You don't have to do anything more. And I'm okay with Wayne not trying.
A legend at this point, and you know, obviously, like I don't know the guy's finances or anything, but like, is another record worth of revenue at this point really going to be all that worth it for Wayne? You know, it's like he's probably just like, you know, he's just sitting pretty at this point. Like all he needs to do is just like keep coming through with like fire fucking guest verses and, you know,
dropping NFT.
You know,
it's coming.
Maybe that'll be the last thing we talk about. Like, you know, what is your take right now? And just like all these fucking artists, just like NFT. Are you going to do an NFT?
No,
you're not going to do an NFT.
No,
pussy.
I don't. Any NFT like crypto. Like, I get how some of these things can make people money, but it's just like how. I think I'm more surprised at how everyone is looking at something and then like unironically advertising it as something that is like revolutionary or just has so much value when everyone sees that it's nothing. Like, you know, I can see you, like, you know, I know what this is, and you're still acting like, yeah, like everybody, let's hop on this, let's get behind this. Like, no, it's garbage. It's not worth anything. It's not going to be worth anything. Why are you marketing this to people? Like, who believes you, I guess, is what I'm trying to trying to get.
Yeah, it's really like a snake oil thing. And I envision a future where maybe it actually does make more sense to get into and is more of a legitimate business practice. But I don't think we're going to be there until like Web3 is microchipped in our brains and we're spending most of our time in the metaverse on Facebook than we are in real life, which I hope that I never see that future. What's kind of annoying me now as far as the NFT thing is like it's kind of graduated from this, at least in my view, this thing that we're seeing artists kind of endorse every once in a while, because obviously like they're paid tons of money to do so, to where it's becoming like a part of the general cultural vernacular. I came across, not like a famous person or, like somebody who's making a whole lot of hits, but I came across this random rap song the other day from somebody who had kind of a platform and, they threw out this one bar that was like, I'm a work of art, like NFT. And I was just like, no. Like, what the fuck? Like, no, please do not let this
No, it's in there.
Become this thing that we're regularly referencing all the time now.
It's coming. I mean, I somewhat could understand why people would invest like maybe in crypto, even though there are so many like pump and dump schemes out there right now.
Right.
I could see why someone would say something like that, because Nas went like, I don't know why he went crazy on it with some features last year, talking about like, I'm invested in something, or I'm Coinbase. And like, these are unironic bars coming from somebody that like, this is you. Like, you're not allowed to get away with this. Like,
right.
I respect you too much.
And he's involved in this site right now that has this new crypto thing going where you can invest in the streaming royalties of a track from an artist. So if you like, and again, Nas has like a track, investable on this platform that does specifically this, where you can get dividends back if some song that you've invested in is like really hot or streams really well or something. Now, that being said, like, as you kind of say earlier, like, what tracks are going to be hot and what tracks aren't going to be. Like, I think as an artist, you'd be a pretty big fucking idiot to be like, yeah, this track way too sexy that I've put a ton of effort into and is probably going to be one of the hottest tracks of the year. I'll let people like buy into half the streaming revenue. Like you would never let people buy into half the streaming revenue of that. You would want all that revenue. Like, you would just throw tracks on there. Yeah, I'm just going to throw this random fucking shit that's never going to pop off on there.
100%.
But yeah, I mean, as you were kind of saying, even Nas is kind of getting into that whole realm.
Yeah, I don't. I get that there's far more avenues to make money now than that, especially when you have the following that a lot of these artists that allow themselves to be used for marketing for these things have. Like, you have so many more opportunities and so many other business ventures that you can go off into that don't involve you kind of tarnishing your reputation to sell people basically valueless JPEGs or whatever it is that you want to put out there. Like, it can be easier for you. You have the type of audience that will legitimately buy your product. Your product is maybe your talent. Maybe you go on another tour, or maybe you do something different, but it doesn't have to be this. Like, there's better ways.
With that being said, like, I feel like this is something that we're only seeing the popularity surge of, especially in the music world, because of like how hard the music industry has been over the past couple of years due to the pandemic. Right. Like, is this something that artists would be as desperate to jump into if many of them who, we see some like pretty big names doing this, being like Meek Mill or Gunna or whoever, even, Lil Baby, would we be seeing these artists do this if they weren't deprived over the past 2 years, like $300, $400, maybe $500,000 of like touring revenue that they would have most definitely gotten had it not been for the pandemic?
I think they would have done it regardless.
Yeah, maybe.
I think it means that much. And when I don't just see it in music, I mean, I see I don't remember what her name was. She was some model or whatever. She was promising NFTs or a certain something basically, and then they basically disappeared from the platform once people got invested into it. I think it was like a crypto or something like that.
That happens.
Same thing happened with this NBA player. I don't remember his name, but basically he's on pace to be over $100 million by the time he's 30 or something like that. And he makes this crypto where people can invest into it. He starts hyping it up. 2 months later, oh, sorry, the project, it required a little bit more work than I thought it would. I got to shut down. I don't think anyone's getting their money back. I mean, he might do some like jersey releases or something like that, where he kind of releases merchandise to the people who took a loss. But then there's this other crypto, there's this other scheme, basically. I think it's an NFT where it's demanding the cooperation of anyone who suffered a loss by investing in other NFTs. So now this NFT's whole value is that we all need to come together and put our money into this thing. And that's eventually going to have the same fate.
I think you just described what is going to be the next economic bubble that we suffer through for the next 10 years. Like somebody's going, I don't know how it's going to happen, but there's just going to be like, as you said, some NFT that's based on all the NFTs that got the rug pull and got all of the NFT money dropped from the NFT. And people are going to invest like maybe 10 billion trillion dollars into that NFT. And then that's going to get pulled. And then everyone's money is just going to disappear overnight. So
yeah,
the economy will be over.
I hope it doesn't happen. I really do.
All right. Well, hey, thank you for coming through and having a conversation and being a great guest and being chill as I've always known you to be. I appreciate
you for having me.
Yeah, no, it's been great, and people loved having you on. A lot of your fans came through, and love you.
Yeah, love you guys. Love you too.
And I love you. You know, my audience loves you as well. We appreciate you.
I appreciate you guys too. I do.
Right. Well, have a good one, man.
You too.